Hello and welcome. For those of you just joining us today, my name's Jonathan Doe, and I like to collect artifacts and relics from infamous true crime cases. And this is my show, where I share with you pieces from that collection and the stories behind them. And today I have something really special for you guys. This episode is the first entry in a two-part installment centered around the 2012 Aurora theater shooting, also known as the Batman theater shooting. This year marks the 10-year anniversary of that tragedy, an event that took place during the midnight premiere of The Dark Knight Rises, in which perpetrator James Holmes would implement a spree shooting inside the theater, killing 12 people and injuring 70 others. And so what I have to share with you today is a copy of The Dark Knight Rises, signed by survivor Carli Rowyn Richards. And in today's episode, Carli was kind enough to sit down with me and share her experience. So let's get into that. This is Murderabilia, Show and Tell. Hey everyone, welcome back to Murderabilia Show and Tell. I'm your host Jonathan Doe, and I'm sitting here over Skype with actress, artist, and survivor of the 2012 Aurora theater shooting, Carli Rowyn Richards. How are you doing today?
Good. Sweaty, but good.
Let's start off with well, actually, I want to say that I'm really excited that you reached out to me and started talking to me because we actually kind of hang out in the same kind of circles and stuff. I'm a really good friend of Felicia Fisher, and you were in the film Thrust with her, actually, and I think that's really cool that not only do we have this connection with true crime and stuff, but you're also really into to film and all of that. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because I'm going through the name change. I've kind of just been putting Rowan as my middle name on stuff, but soon it'll be my first name. I'm stoked. I'm always my mommy named me Carli, but my friends call me Ro. It was just weird because Taylor was hey, there's this guy you should talk to. He's really cool. And I was I wonder if I already know him. And he was I think you know some people you know. And I looked you up and I was oh fuck, I'm already following you. And I saw Felicia on your page, and Felicia was just so fucking cool. I was a little intimidated, when Victor was oh, here's the girls you're staying at the Airbnb with. Because, if it's a bunch of dudes, I'm usually just yeah, okay, whatever. But, I was oh, these girls are so cool. I hope they like me. And he was Felicia's done, Hustler and this and that. And I was really? But she was so humble and fucking chill. She was great. And, her part in Thrust was, oh, my God. It was campy. It was awesome. She fucking killed it. So it was so good. But yeah, it's just really interesting to see these parallels I have with people that, I'm I think it's just a testament to how all of us in the true crime community are just regular people. I don't know how regular we are, but we're people, we're not just potential murderous psychopaths collecting stuff from murderous psychopaths, I'm no, we're actually we're all right people. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that movie. I mean, the trailer looks awesome, and there's been a lot of anticipation. I've known about it since production started, because Felicia was out there. She was out there doing stuff, and I was going to meet up with her afterwards and stuff. But it just seems like such a fun film, and there's so many really awesome names. I'm sure it was awesome to work with everybody.
Oh, yeah. I feel it's going to be a cult classic. Everybody and their mom is asking me, where can I watch it? And I'm I don't know when it's getting picked up for distro. I just, but it's so good. Even if I didn't know anybody or, wasn't involved with it, I'd, sitting in the theater, I would have been this is so fucking good, you guys. So, everyone did a stellar job. I'm really lucky I got to work with all these fucking awesome people, dude.
Yeah, hell yeah. Let's get to kind of the basics. Can you give a brief introduction of who you are and what you do and everything?
And how I got here.
And how you got here, yeah.
So yeah, like I, born and raised in Akron, Ohio, joined the military and then moved to Colorado. Thought like I was dating a guy who was going to film school actually. Like I was like in like a ton of his like little like short film projects. Like I'd had like formal training as an actor as a kid, but like just didn't fucking do anything with it. And we made some cool stuff. The dude was really creative. And both of our roommates, were they helped and stuff. One of them was what was he? He was studying directing, and then the guy I was with was studying post-production editing. And I was like, holy shit, that's part of filmmaking I never would have part of. But obviously, because I'm living with film school students, and I like dark, creepy shit. Like Batman is like, he's the Dark Knight, duh, right? So like, we went to the movies all the time, and like, so when I saw that there were like tickets for the premiere of The Dark Knight Rises, I was like, fuck yeah, we're going to the midnight premiere, and like, we were so stoked. Like our friends that didn't go, we were like, oh, you guys are missing out. And so, yeah, that was. I mean, it's just funny because the fucking odds, right? Like of like, I know some people who survived the military and then like got shot later. So I'm like, God, like irony is really sick. And yeah, so. But because of my military training, like I was lucky, actually, like I got so fucking lucky. And like a lot of people are like, what do you mean lucky? I'm like, I mean like lucky in like contrast to like what could have happened, right? Like, it's like some guy comes in and throws something at you and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is. It lands at our feet, right? So like immediately like my boyfriend and I are like, oh shit, tear gas, because they tear gas you in boot camp. Just so you know what it smells like. Like, I don't know, like tear gas is a smell that like I feel just like burns in your memory forever. Like if you smell it, like, and it's nasty. And that was kind of our sign to run. I don't think anyone else in the theater was processing what was happening because I sure as shit wasn't. Like, I was just, like, it was literally just my body doing, like, the bare minimum, like, I don't know, run. And so, like, I get out, and a lot of people are like, oh, are you just saying, like, you were just, like, smarter than everyone or, like, survival of the fittest? I'm like, no, just literally, like, my body was doing what my body would do if it smelled tear gas, like, which not everyone else got to do right away, right? So, like, I processed everything as, like, fireworks or something. Like, I had no idea what happened until the paramedics were like, oh, there was a shooting. And I think I actually laughed because I was like, what are the fucking odds of that happening in a movie theater? You know what I mean? Like, so it was just, like, I am so sick of surviving, like, astronomically weird historical events. Like, I almost got stuck in China when COVID started. Like, it's just been, like, one thing after the other, dude. But luckily, life has settled down a bit, and 5 years ago, I quit drinking, and
hell yeah.
thank goodness, because I was like, I was on my way to be, one of the youngest people on the liver transplant list, but because of that, I couldn't work at a bar anymore, so I started working at a haunted house, and realized, like, how much I fucking love haunt acting, and a friend of mine, one of our makeup artists, came up to me and was like, I need, like, a topless dead girl in a trunk for a scene in a film. My friend's making this kind of like faux grindhouse trailer called The Impersonator, and it's actually on Tubi. A shameless plug. It's on Tubi right now under Frames of Fear 3. If you haven't seen it, look it up because like The Impersonator was so good. And yeah, like from there on, I just had this social circle of people like reaching out like, hey, like I need an extra for this, or I need an extra set of hands to do special effects for this. And I think that's how Victor found me for Thrust. Like the director is Victor, and he was like, I have a perfect role for you. And when he pitched the whole movie to me, I was like, this is like fucking utopia. I was like, this is a film I've always wanted to make. Like I have Jennifer's Body posters all over my apartment. You can't see them because they're behind the computer, but yeah, I was like, geez, this is like Jennifer's Body on crack. Like, and it's so good. Like, I mean, I guess I can't compare it to Jennifer's Body, but I love really just like having like lady villains and like really just like misandrous shit. And if you've seen the flyers, So, without giving away any spoilers, just like it was awesome. And I'm actually gearing up to help shoot another short film with the guy that made The Impersonator. I don't want to give any details away about it, but at the end of the month. So I'm really excited. Like it was, I mean, luckily the haunted house, I feel like opened up so many doors for me with acting and just making movies. I just want to make cool shit. So, yeah, that's kind of how I got, well, not here, but that's kind of where we have that mutual, social circle?
Yeah.
But yeah, and the memorabilia stuff started because, you know, I don't know if you ever watched that like National Geographic program they used to have called Taboo.
Yeah.
And it was like about stuff that's taboo. And there was a guy on there selling serial killer memorabilia. And I was like, what? Like, that's so weird. And I mean, it was a few years after the shooting happened. I had a lot of like, you know, birdshot pellets dug out of me. I was hit like 22 times. So I still have some. Like, my right knee is fucked up. Like, it just like, there's still shrapnel in it. But like the surgery to remove it would be more invasive than just doing some fucking yoga. Like, you know, so, and taking care of it. But yeah, that was, I had a couple sitting around and I Google searched the guy and sold a few on his website and like, yeah, just kind of went from there. And now years later, I'm like, I still have all this crap. What do I do with it? So I reached out to Taylor from Cult Collectibles and now I've got some items available.
Yeah, I actually just bought a couple things that you sold him. I think that's really a unique, I mean, Murderabilia is really fascinating, but the fact that you're taking things from your personal experience and selling it, what does that feel like? Like, what did it feel like when you're like, oh, I've got these birdshot pellets and people want them? Did that feel weird, or were you like hyped that you were going to get some money from it, or what?
I think like at the time it was just like I was in survival mode. Like I feel like even after, sorry, my computer. Yeah, like even after, you know, years after the shooting happened, like it was still hard to like hold down a job. Like I was like, it probably seems like I slept a lot, but it was me like trying to sleep and then having like nightmares and sleep paralysis and waking up like every half hour, you know? So it was like, I mean, I couldn't hold down a job. Like I was like physically and mentally just like fucked up. And so when I saw the pellets, it was like, you know, like me and my girlfriend at the time were cleaning them and she was like, you know, some weirdo would pay money for these. And I was like, oh my God, one of the weirdos like us. So so that was when I looked up Serial Killers Inc. Like he was the first one that popped up. I was like, this is the guy from the documentary. I got to call him. You know, and as soon as I messaged him, he emailed me back. He was like, nobody else has shit from the theater right now. Like this is a first. And I was like, oh, cool. Like for me, it was literally just like, I have to fucking eat. You know what I mean? Like it was like, I have to eat. I have to feed my dog. Like I have to put gas in my car that barely runs. And so, for me, it was like literally just survival. Like, and it was, you know, there was a lot of media about it and stuff. And I was just kind of like, okay, I'm just going to go wherever they tell me to go because I need to eat. And it was, so it was kind of a rough time at first. But yeah, I think for me, like now it's just like, okay, like my attitude about it now is like, I can take this really fucked up thing that happened and I can like do something positive with it. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I can use this money towards like fucking school or like not fixing my car, I'm saving for a new car, or like, you know, just like stuff that I need, you know, and like I want to get my name change legalized, and like that's another bunch of money for like the paperwork and the new ID and this and that. So yeah, it's like for me, it's kind of it's just being able to like take a negative and like find a positive from it, you know?
Yeah. From kind of like interviews and I've seen with you, you've actually gotten into collecting yourself, and you actually have obtained some relics or items from cases that you're interested in. And I was wondering what your thought on being someone who is selling things and now as a collector, like what is your outlook on the Murderabilia community, and what are some cases that you're interested in?
So it's kind of funny because there was a guy I sold my clothes to. Like I got him back and I was like, I just want to get rid of these like now. Like I was like, do you want them cleaned? No? Okay, now I want to get rid of them sooner, you know, much sooner. I opened the box and it was like, so I immediately repackaged them, and he was like, I have a lot of stuff, obviously. Like his website is like fucking vast. And he was like, can I do a partial trade? And I was like, trying to think of like something you can't recreate, you know? I was like, all right, who's been like executed? And I was like, Ramirez. So he actually, he paid me, you know, enough cash, obviously, like it was totally a fair trade. And then he also gave me a Richard Ramirez letter, which I've moved so many times that I have no idea where it is. Like it's probably lost in someone else's house right now. So I'm like, oh, that kind of sucks. Cause like, that was a cool thing. I had thought about reselling it and I'm like, yeah, well, can't do anything with it now. But yeah, Ornos was like, I think everyone's confused on how to pronounce her name, and I have no idea. I tell people it's Eileen. But yeah, I saw a deal on a piece of, like, it was like a swatch from the robe for her, like, last rites. And they had it, like, on sale at True Crime Auction House, you know, so I immediately snatched that up because, like, anything with her I can get on it that's, like, I don't want to break my bank with it, but you know what I mean? I do like that. And I think I wore it for my last interview, like a t-shirt I got from this other website. It says, like, I'm with her, and has the iconic pose. But yeah, I think for, like, in my case with, like, Eileen, it's kind of like, her case is, like, relatable to some degree. Like, I mean, she had, like, a beyond fucked up childhood, like, way more fucked up than mine. But, you know, like, as someone who was, like, a stripper before and stuff, like, I have seen, like, firsthand, like, the shit that, like, sex workers go through. And, like, you know, it's like, it's almost like our dream to, like, one of those guys that sexually assaults us at work to, like, you know, do what she got to do. But, like, horrible that had to happen to her, you know. So I think, like, people have so many different reasons for collecting, like, Murderabilia. But, like, for me, it's partially about just, like, having something unique that no one else has, you know. Like, it's people collect, like, World War II memorabilia. Like, some even collect, like, Nazi memorabilia. No judgment, but, like, I would feel weird having it in here because, you know, but yeah, like, I think that people have all kinds of different reasons for collecting this stuff. But, like, for me, it's, like, just having something unique that no one else has. And also, I think everyone feels a different connection to different cases, you know. And in my case, it's Eileen. Some people really like cults, like, specifically. Like, some people have a bunch of Charles Manson shit. And it's, I think, like, whatever the reason, like, people, you know, maybe they can relate to their experiences, or maybe it's just, like, I mean, I have some Ramirez stuff because that case was so fucked up, right? Like, it was so fucked up that it was like this person was just so fucking, like, evil, like, beyond my comprehension, that I think when we get a piece of memorabilia from that, it makes it feel more like tangible, you know what I mean? And it's easier to wrap our heads around this thing that happened when we actually have a tangible piece of it, you know. So I think, like, the different reasons everyone has, I think people have, like, moral debates about it or whatever, but I just feel like, in my opinion, like, it kind of just, like, is what it is, you know. Like, I tell people, like, how can you collect, like, World War II memorabilia, like, the fucking Holocaust, and then be like, oh, but, like, if you collect something from, like, you know, a lady that, like, shot 7 guys, like, no. Like, that's taboo, you know. So I guess it's about, like, where people draw the line with, like, what's taboo and what's not. But, like, you know, for me, like, I've never been, like, a conventional person, you know what I mean? Like, I was the one kid that brought, like, a book about witchcraft to Catholic school and was like, I don't see the problem with this. Like, maybe I don't pick up on social cues or something, but I was never, like, a conventional person. I like horror movies, you know, and so, like, I feel like maybe that's part of the draw, you know. It's real life horror. I've had real life horror in my real life, and so, you know, that was kind of, I guess that was the appeal for me, was just having something different.
Yeah, I mean, I can really relate to that because, I mean, I've had trauma and stuff like that, and I've really used horror as almost kind of like a way to, like, gain control over fear or gain control over, or I don't know, it gives you autonomy over that stuff. You can physically hold it and control it. And I think also what you said was that holding a relic or something like that from something so horrific makes it real, you know. And like, one thing I do for this channel is actually go to locations where things like horrific things have happened, and it's crazy to look at that and be like, you can just really imagine it. And it makes it more, it takes it from being this almost like boogeyman scary story into something in, like, holy shit, this really did take place, and it makes it that much more significant and in kind of a impactful way. But kind of connecting to that, we're kind of like our generation grew up with, like, Columbine in 1999, or, like, the Virginia Tech shooting, and it happens so much in our country. Shootings, like mass shootings, happen in our country. Did you think, when the shooting was taking place with you, were you like, holy shit, I'm in the middle of a shooting right now, or how did that process with you, like, growing up with that and then realizing that you experienced one?
Yeah, I mean, that was actually pretty weird because, like, I mean, it's like obviously, like, at the time the event was like actively happening, like, I don't think any of us really processed like right away what was happening, right? Like, my brain doesn't process fireworks as fireworks now. It processes them as gunshots, but like, I'm totally cool to go to the shooting range. I don't know. Like, so it's because it's just such an astronomically low chance of something like that happening, right? The fucking movies. But, yeah, I mean, I remember being a kid and reading an article, and I tell people about this all the time because it's just so weird. Like, it's so surreal. I remember reading an article about Columbine, and like, actually my uncle, I just call them aunts and uncles and cousins. I've got godparents, whatever, but my godfather, he actually lives in Littleton, and he was a first responder at Columbine. And I remember reading this story, like a firsthand story from this girl who, like, you know, like one of her classmates died. It was like her friend, and she was like, you know, like, I hallucinate, like, I have PTSD, like all these trauma symptoms. Like, I dealt with like childhood sexual trauma, but like nothing like a shooting, you know what I mean? And so she was talking about, like, I was like shampooing my hair in the shower, and I looked over and I could see her standing in the bathroom or whatever. And it was like, I remember just thinking when I was reading that, like, that's so awful. I can't, like, imagine going through something like that, you know? Like, I mean, we had a kid bring a knife to school once. It was like, we were kind of hood, though. It wasn't like that there wasn't going to be mass shootings. If someone had an issue with someone, they were just going to go whoop their ass. So, like, you know, or threaten to and get arrested. But yeah, so I remember just like thinking like that I can't imagine that happening. And then the shooting happened at the theater, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, you know, just like, what the fuck? And, you know, one of the first people I actually went to visit after it happened was, you know, my parents, luckily the people that worked at the hospital with my dad were just so sweet, and they like all kind of pulled together, and they were like, you need to go see your daughter right now. So like my mom flew out, and then my dad flew out later, and we went to visit, you know, my uncle, and he's like a doctor now. Like he does, he like writes for journals, medical journals and shit. And he even looked at my stuff and said like, dude, if you'd been a couple inches closer, like you'd be dead, you know. And this is a guy who was a first responder at Columbine. So, yeah, and you know, we both like firearms, so like he knows what he's talking about, you know what I mean? It was just like I couldn't, it was really hard to like process, like, you know, that could have been me, you know, and then like, or it couldn't be me, it couldn't possibly happen to me, and then, you know, something so close to Columbine happens, and it's just like, why do I have all these weird connections with these things? Like, you know, no wonder people are like, you work for the FBI, you're a crisis actor. I'm like, you know what, if I was fucked up and delusional, I'd probably think that too. Because, like, what are the odds? You know what I mean? Just what are the fucking odds?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I'm really cognizant about. I mean, after I heard about the shooting, like, I don't go to midnight screenings of movies anymore. Like, I am actually really cautious about going to any really crowded event of any kind, because it's just the world we live in now. It's fucking wild. Yeah. But you brought up the crisis actors and stuff, and you got kind of a lot of negative attention once you started going more public after the event took place. And I was wondering what you could tell us about that and how that had played out.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it was just like wild that like, I mean, like, when it first happened, like, obviously, like, that's kind of how trauma works. Like, my brain was just, like, constantly, like, I wanted to get out of the hospital because, you know, I'm from a city where apparently, like, it was, like, many years ago, but it was before this happened, like, this guy walked in and, like, shot his wife in the face. Mm-hmm. While she was in the hospital. And so like I didn't know what the fuck happened. We didn't know anything about the shooter. We didn't know any of this stuff. Like, I was at the fucking hospital. So like that I went to in an ambulance with people who were bleeding worse than me. So like I was just like in shock, and like I was like, I want to go home. Like, please let me go home. I just want to be with my dog somewhere that I feel is safe. And like, you know, I had kind of just started doing like some modeling. Like, I was like building up my portfolio, you know, I just wanted to make some cool stuff. You know, and so I guess I already had like a relatively like, I guess they described it as like a pretty sprawling like online presence, you know, like, and I mean, like any normal fucking millennial, I have social media. Like, so, and I didn't realize like the gravity of like what had just happened, you know, like I think it was until a couple days later or something that I even like saw the shooter show up on TV. Like I didn't know who he was. Like, I just knew this bad thing happened, and I wanted to go home and get better, and I was in a lot of fucking pain. Like, both mentally and physically. So I guess I was just really accessible. And so they kind of just like took it as like a go ahead to like find someone to, I mean, like, I really think these people are just like really fucked up. Like, they're just like, I don't know if they were like abused, like, or they just don't have like the capacity to like process, like when to like show some sort of empathy. Like, I think they might just be really lonely people, you know? And so, I mean, there was a 7-page article about it in Denver Westward. It's also available online, but like, I was on the front cover of like the magazine because this lady was like, I see all these fucking people harassing you and I want to tell the whole story about it. So, I mean, it was just crazy. Like, I felt like I couldn't exist. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't log onto my computer without seeing like another headline about me with something like misquoted or like stretched out. Like, I'm in Dave Mustaine's Wikipedia article now. Thank you, TMZ Entertainment. I didn't even know who TMZ was, by the way. No idea. And I was like, sure, I'll talk to you guys. It's fine. I don't mind sharing, you know. And then I was like, oh, fucking shit. Like, I'm in a tabloid now. So, you know, it's like, James Holmes should have a slow, painful death. I'm like, oh, just kill me. Why didn't you just kill me? But yeah, it was rough. Like, it was like, at first it was people messaging and trying to sound like innocent enough. And it was like, we just want to like talk about what happened. I'm like, I don't owe it to you to like talk about like a horrifically tragic, like traumatic experience where like people fucking died and like so many more are injured and just traumatized. You know what I mean? So like, I think, you know, when I was like, I don't want to talk to you guys about this, like they kind of took it as, you know, like, fuck her. And like, it kind of turned into this whole thing. Like, it went from like conspiracy theorists who were like, she's a crisis actor. She worked with the police. There was that guy that wrote in like a bogus motion saying that he was me and misspelled my name and my boyfriend's name, I think. My boyfriend at the time. And yeah, it was just like, it went beyond like, oh, she's a crisis actor. Like eventually, like I wasn't taking their shit. Like I was like telling them like, yo, eat shit and die. Like, you know, and you know, because like fucking justifiably so. And, you know, I had people telling me like, no, you got to like adhere to these like respectability politics, be as dour as possible. Don't be naked on the internet anymore. Fucking like, don't tell these people who like wish that you had died to eat shit. Like, and now I'm just like, fuck you guys, like come find me. But, you know, so it's, and none of them had, not a single one of them has. And there were like dozens and then hundreds and then probably thousands. I mean, like, this guy somehow just has fans, like, and I guess what it boiled down to was, like, I think these are just really lonely, fucked up people that just, like, want to fuck him, and, like, I'm the one, like, hole in their theory that, like, he's innocent. Like, thank goodness for my tattoos. They were actually great testimony at the trial, because they're like, oh, how do you know that that wound is on your body? And I would be like, oh, because of that tattoo and that one, you know, and, yeah, it just turned into like personal attacks. I had people calling me like ugly and fat and like, you stupid bitch. I had people like quoting me on their like little atheist pages. There was one guy that like, I was like, can you please take this down? Like, I'm getting so much shit for this. If people want to read the whole thing I wrote, cool. But like this one you know, no context quote, like slapped onto a dirty bathroom mirror selfie of me that I took so I could show my friends like, hey, here's where the wounds are. I'm fine, you know? Mm-hmm. Like I wasn't fine, but I was alive. And so like, yeah, like the dude was like, oh, I'm just going to block you. Like it was like, I mean, to sum it up, yeah, it was just like hundreds of people just like literally like verbally attacking me and just like, it was insane because I was already like in such a vulnerable mental spot that like it was so hard to even exist. And I mean, I think like I could have healed a lot faster and a lot better, like if it hadn't been for all these people. So I mean, I hope they watch this and they're really pleased with themselves. But I feel like if that's like the only fulfillment you get out of life is like James Holmes wrote me back, like I don't know what is it like. But yeah, so they really hate me, and I really fucking hate them, and I hope every single one of them just like dies in a car fire. Can we make sure that gets published? I hope all the homies die in a car fire. I hope that's the next stupid fucking headline they take out for me. Like, hey, TMZ, I got a headline for you. But yeah, so it made it hard to exist, dude. And that was originally why I wanted to change my name. And then I realized, like, you know what? Actually, I want to change my name because, like, I don't want to be defined by this thing that happened to me. It was something that happened, but it's not all of me. And I think when you're a grown up, you get to make yourself and like be who you want to be instead of whatever was forced on you by society or family or whatever. So yeah, I guess maybe they were a blessing, for lack of better words, in disguise, you know. But the bright side is I make myself very available, and people always know where I am all the time. Like, I'm not hard to find. You know what I mean? Like, I have routines. You know where I am. And not a single one of them has found me in person. So
that's
fuck them.
Yeah. Is that something that you still struggle with? Like, are people still is there still that fan base that's like you're having conflict with, or did that kind of die down the more that time passed and the case kind of got older and older?
I think when that article came out about it, the 7-page one in the Westward,
Mm-hmm.
It died down a little because they were kind of like, oh shit. Like, I remember them like trying to like really gaslight me, like, oh, she's just, you know, and I was like, you know, so after that came out, they were like, oh shit, you know what I mean? And of course, like, I mean, fuck cops, like the DA's office and stuff, they were like, oh, there's nothing we can do about it. I'm like, I'm literally being like harassed and like to the point of like almost being physically threatened and like you really don't care. But yeah, and so I mean, it sort of died down a little after that. It died down a little bit more after he was convicted, you know, because I was like, told you. And then after that, yeah, I don't know. I definitely did make myself a little less available for a while. And because of that, I think they died down a little. And I haven't really heard from one of them. I think they just stay on their little fucking Facebook group and like, you know, oh my God, he wrote me back. I'm like, how much money did you send him for commissary, Tina? You know, I've literally like seen comments on like posts. I think someone had a letter available from him and I was like, cool, this is dark. Why am I looking at this? But, you know, somebody was like, oh my God, he won't write me back. I'm like, you need to send him money, stupid. But it's like, he still has like his little fans and stuff. But I think since I like got to publicly call them out on such a grand scale, like being on the cover of the paper and stuff, I think it was, you know, since then they kind of died down a little bit because they realized like, oh shit, you know, now that like I've gone through a lot of healing and stuff and like, I mean, a lot of martial arts training and stuff too, I feel like I'm a lot less afraid. And now that I'm kind of like, I feel like sometimes I kind of bait them, like just come find me, you know, and like not a single fucking one of them has. So it's just, you know, it's funny to me because they've all just like shut the fuck up as of now, which is awesome. They can stay in their lane.
You mentioned the trial. Was that something that you were actually involved in?
Yeah, I really didn't want to be. You know, like I'm really adamant about like cooperating with police. I don't like the idea of having to do that. Like it put me in a fucked up position. I don't like really agree with like the way the justice system works or, you know, like cops. And so like having to go do that was really hard, you know? And I think like the bright side is, you know, I was like, fuck, I really don't want to testify. And the assistant DA actually, she was, I probably shouldn't name her because like she's been on a lot of high profile cases and she just has to like disappear from social media, change her phone number, you know, it's wild. But she was like, she did more for me than like the victims advocates did. Like she was awesome. And she sort of like almost physically held my hand through the whole thing. And she was like, yo, there are a lot of people, like afterwards, I was like, I feel so much better after testifying. Like, what the fuck, you know? And she was like, yeah, there's a billion other people apparently that, you know, they didn't want to go testify. They thought it would be too hard or, you know, doesn't coincide with my values. I'm like, why didn't you guys just shoot him on sight like you did with like the black man that robbed the cricket store, unarmed? but whatever. But yeah, so like I just, you know, I didn't want to testify, but after I did, I felt so much better. And I remember the assistant DA saying, like, a lot of other people said that. And I guess it gave me a good amount of, like, closure. Because, like, I don't know if I really believe in closure, but I do believe in, like, that, like, if closure is being able to make something tangible and accept that it happened instead of, like, dissociating or whatever or having a horrible reaction to it. I guess, like, for me, that was closure, and that, like, helped me a lot, actually. And I was glad I did. But it was hard. It was a real emotional process. Like, they showed like the pictures of me in the hospital on like the big projector, you know, and my parents, I heard some people gasp at one point, like at my family, you know, and I was like, oh, don't look at your mom, she's crying. I had to like look away from mom because mom's crying, and I'm like, can't start crying during testimony, you know. I'm like, just tell them what happened. And so yeah, it was rough. And it was like, yeah, I remember going to these fucking court hearings and being like, that guy just like looked me in the eyes one time, you know, and like not once, not one single time. Like, dude just sat there boring as fuck, like didn't say a word, like nothing. So it was, testifying was rough, but I'm really glad I did it. So
did it feel weird being in the same room as him?
At first it did. I think like we went to one of the like preliminary hearings, like just so we could like see him in person, because we were like, you know, I've never met this person before. Like, I saw a picture of him on TV once, you know, and like that was it. So it was just like, okay, we got to go see who this guy is. And yeah, I know, like seeing him in person the first time was kind of weird, because there was just something about him that was not, it was kind of uncanny valley shit. Like, just something about him wasn't human, you know, like it was weird, you know. So it kind of helped me also connect, like, okay, this was a person, another person did this, like people are capable of these things. And so yeah, it was kind of weird in a way that I can't really describe like how or why, but yeah, like seeing him in person at first was kind of weird.
How the trial concluded was that he got 12 consecutive life sentences and had to pay restitutions to all the survivors. Were you happy with that outcome, or did you wish things turned out differently? How did that feel at the end?
I mean, I don't remember getting any restitution, so that sucks. But, I mean, maybe I did, and I just had no idea. Because, like I said, like, my brain was just, like, fried for years after that. But, yeah, I feel like, I don't agree with the way they do the death penalty, but, like, it just really fucked me up that, like, this is the same police force that, like, kills, like, unarmed black kids, and then, like, they just, like, took him in peacefully and then made us, like, spend years while he was on trial, like, waiting for this to just fucking end, you know? Like, it made me a little mad. So at the time, like, I totally agreed with the DA when he was like, death penalty. I was like, fuck yeah, bro, let's do this. And so, you know, I just remember, like, and, like, me and George have, like, nothing else in common. Like, we have both a prior military service, but, like, none of our politics or values are the same. He's, like, very conservative, and, like, I'm the person that went far left enough to get their guns back. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, opposite ends of the spectrum, but we both agreed, like, death penalty. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's an inequality there, and, like, we want that. And I just remember, like, I think he might have cried. Like, he was just such a tough motherfucker, you know? And, like, to see him, like, just feel, I can't describe it. Like, he just was so, like, shot down, you know what I mean? Like, proverbially. But, like, when that verdict happened, like, I just remember he just looked fucking, like, defeated. And I was like, and I felt it, and I looked at him, and I was just like, no. Like, we felt so defeated afterwards, you know, just because one person was like, oh, no, we can't do that. And I was like, so I wasn't really stoked about the verdict, but then also I feel like if he was on death row, like, he'd be able to maybe, like, file some appeals or whatever. And I like that he's not getting that chance, but I don't like that our tax dollars are going to keep him fed. So I have mixed feelings about the verdict, but I had to make peace with it because I realized, like, you know what, like, the best outcome I can get out of this, out of the legal system, is that, like, he can't hurt anyone again. And, like, that's all I want. I just want him to not be able to hurt anyone again. So I got that, hopefully. And you know, that was the best I could hope for. So got it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's fucking wild. And it's like, I don't know, you watch footage of him and he's just clearly Looney Tunes, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So, it's July was the 10-year anniversary, so that's like less than a month ago. How did that feel? And what is your relationship with the other survivors? Are you close with anybody? And did you guys do anything pertaining to the 10-year anniversary?
I feel like in Aurora, like at the memorial, they usually do like some sort of like they do like a memorial vigil of sorts, like at the memorial garden. And obviously I'm not there for that, but there was a guy who was in theater 8, and he and another guy I think were like people don't realize how messed up theater 8 got. I mean, they got messed up. There were people who were like really severely injured over there, and they were helping this guy, lugging him out of the theater, who was like covered in blood. And so I think the guy had like some serious survivor skill, and he started going to all the hearings and stuff, and we got in touch and we became friends. And so like, every year around the anniversary, or when there's like another stupid cluster of mass shootings, which it just seems to be like a fucking daily thing now. We sort of like check in with each other, like, hey buddy, how are you? Like, are you coping well? Cause, so yeah, I think he's like one of the only people I keep in touch with that was like actually in the theater. I think like most people are kind of just like, I want to just move on with my normal, as normal as possible life. But like my life was not normal before this, and it wasn't fucking normal after this. Like, so I don't have normal. But I was dealing, I was anticipating the 10-year being like really hard for me. But like I had so many other like issues going on, like my family having health issues and stuff, that it was like, it was just another stressor and a pile of stressors. And like, I'm so over July. Like July sucked. And I think like, I don't know, I guess the anniversary made me a little more emotionally reactive to all the stuff that sucked about July. But yeah, July just sucked in general. But I am lucky I have at least one person that was there that, I can reach out to, and like, he gets it. You know what I mean? Like he and I both, can kind of, I guess, just like empathize with each other. And it sucks that other people went through that, but like also it's really good to not feel alone when you're going through shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. As someone who's really a big fan of cinema, was it difficult to finally like, do you go to the movies anymore? How does that affected your relationship with film?
So my boyfriend at the time actually had a class that was in like a small movie theater for film school. It's like a little tight, like a private theater. So like we couldn't really avoid like the movies, but it was like several months before I tried to like go back to one. We tried to go see Lords of Salem, and this lady was causing so much commotion that we had to like get security. I was like, can we like just watch a movie? Like, like can we just watch a fucking movie, Eventually I got to see that again. It was all right. And then I think like that following December, like we were both living really far away from home, Ohio, Michigan, and Colorado. And so we went to see Django Unchained, and I had a great time. It was a good film. Like I don't go to the movies as often, especially like pandemic bullshit, just like not really having time. Like the last time I wanted to go see the new Batman movie, and then like my dad was like, oh, I've been exposed to COVID. I'm like, I've been at your house 3 days in a row. Like, what do I do? I was like, I'm not going to go out, And so, yeah, I still go to the movies. Like the last one I went to see was like the newer Scream movie, because like I fucking love slasher films. So like my easy listening, because like I don't really have to think about them. It's like bad guy has knife, bad guy goes stab stab, and then bad guy goes stab stab. Hopefully one of the girls wins. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't have to really do much to digest them. I love slasher films. So yeah, I took myself, and it was a late night screening. It was like 10 something at night. I just wanted to go alone to see if I could. You know what I mean? So like I had a little anxiety. Like I had to take like some of my anxiety meds beforehand. Like I always take the precautions I need to, you know what I mean? Like I make sure my phone is on silent, but not off. And really opportunist thing, by the way. People used to always shut their fucking phones off for the movies, like off. So like who's going to call 911 when their phone is off? You have to sit there and wait for phone to boot up. Like it was a whole thing. Yeah. Like I make sure I got my phone on me. I know where everything is. Like I might have to take my anxiety meds beforehand, like do some breathing exercises. And I mean, I've always had an escape plan, and not just movie theaters, but everywhere. Because my dad always taught me, he's like, you better know where all the fucking exits are in case like, something catches fire or something. And, I was just lucky that I went to the movies on July, 2012, like with the mindset of like, oh, I should sit on the outside in case something happens, or I just have to go pee, but But I think like taking the precautions, like taking care of myself, like before and after, and being gentle with myself, like, hey, you don't even have to sit through this whole movie. You can just fucking leave anytime you want. That helps a lot. So, you know, and if it's a good movie, that helps a lot too. But yeah, so I don't go to the movies, I think, as often as I did before. Like, but I think it's mostly because of time constraints. I feel pretty comfortable most of the time just going to the movies, you know?
Yeah. I didn't really think about this until you had offered to send me a signed copy of The Dark Knight Rises. But did you ever go return to that movie and try to finish it?
Actually, like, as soon as we saw it on DVD, I think we were at, like, King Supers or something. We saw that it came out on, like, you know, DVD or whatever, and we were both like, oh shit, we finally get a chance to watch the movie. Like, you know, so we bought the copy. That bug better be on the outside of my window. Anyways, so yeah, we bought a copy and took it home and watched it. So and it ended up being a really good film. I was like, damn, like there's a lot of stuff in the beginning too that was like really prophetic, you know, where like Bane is like, now is not the time for fear, that will come later. I'm like, you motherfucker. So yeah, like there was actually some. I love Christopher Nolan. Like I feel like he just kind of like gets me on like a really deep level, you know. He kind of gets into your head and yeah, it ended up being a really good film. I was glad we actually got to watch it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, talking more about like your art and the film and stuff that you did, you talked about doing haunts. I'm curious about kind of like your evolution into like acting and all of that kind of stuff. So you started out, correct me if I'm wrong, but you started out doing haunts and then that led you into wanting to do acting in film. What can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, so like the only like dabbling and like acting in film I really had was like when I was a kid. Like I went to Barbizon and then I did like some acting classes. I did like a play or two in school, and then, you know, even like pre-shooting I was helping like my roommates and boyfriend at the time with like some short films, you know, for film school. But yeah, I didn't really like bother with acting until The Haunt, and that's when I realized like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this. And I loved it. Like, I loved the escape of just, like, being a character for, like, several hours a night. Like, because, like, you don't break character. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I am not bro who, like, you know, is freaking out about the fucking electric bill and, like, my dog's been coughing. What do I do? You know what I mean? It's just, like, one thing after the other. Like, none of that fucking matters. Like, you're here to entertain people. And I love entertaining people. Like, just putting on a show that, like, you know, does make them feel, like, fulfilled when they leave. Like, they get their fucking money's worth. So, you know, at The Haunt, someone had said, like, we need someone for a small role in this film. Like, literally just need a topless dead girl in the trunk with her throat slit for a split second of footage. And then someone canceled later. They're like, hey, can you come help out with this? And I was like, sure. They're like, someone's got to cut a baby out of you. I'm like, you what? So... and that ended up going really well. And like from there, it was just kind of like people sort of asking me to just help with little odds and ends. And then like, you know, COVID pushed back so much stuff. But like we got to film a music video for the band Sponge. A lot of people are like, who the fuck is Sponge? I'm like, you're not an elder millennial. But, you know, but they had this new song, Stitch, and it was really good. And we did that music video. And, yeah, I think it might have been like right after that was when Victor pitched Thrust to me. So yeah, I feel like being a scare actor and just like knowing other people who are making films because of that, like kind of led to me getting into, you know, being able to make movies, which is cool. Like, cause I don't really have a goal of like, I'm going to be like the next big thing, you know, like, but I do want to just make cool shit. So like, whether it's like with my modeling shit or like, any random photography stuff. I would love to get more into photography, but equipment costs so much money. But yeah, whether it's like modeling or film, like I actually love modeling because I feel like I can be a character and sort of like move like a character, but in pictures. I would like to get into drag. I know a friend that hosts like a sober drag show in Atlanta. Like he's awesome, and I mean they're awesome, and like yeah, I feel like haunting opened up so many doors for me, and I think like gave me the confidence too, because like I've never like done something and been like, wow, I'm really good at this, like, and had a bunch of other people say, wow, you're really good at that, except for maybe singing, you know? And I was like, well, that's cool, you know? And so I think it gave me a lot of confidence to do more with acting. So I'm really grateful that I have this experience. And yeah, I'll be at the Akron Haunted Schoolhouse and Laboratory again this year because I wanted to move south, but I just want to wait till I finish like my associates online. So.
Hell yeah. You talked about you've mentioned modeling quite a bit throughout this conversation, and I was wondering what got you into that. What kind of shoots do you like to do? Just details about that passion that you have.
I feel like for me it's like I know it's not something I want to like make a career out of, but for me it's just like another creative outlet. Like for me, I see the way that like photography and film kind of like translate with each other, you know? I'm like, okay, like would this show up really good on a moving picture, or would this show up good on an actual picture? And I guess just like the creative aspect of it is fun. Like when I was a kid, I went to like Barbizon and stuff, and like, you know, like I was not built for high fashion, you know, like I don't have like a conventional look. I never have. You know, and I felt really bad about myself as a kid. Like, I didn't think I was pretty or anything. And then I realized, like, modeling's not about being pretty. And I just want to make cool images. And I did my first, like, kind of professional shoot, like, in lieu of senior pictures when I was younger. Like, we went to a graveyard, had my little Molgoth dress on, like, put some fake blood on it, my little Gerard Way, like, zombie makeup. And I was like, huh, I'm really photogenic. That's cool. Like... Didn't think much of it, you know. I got out of the Navy and I was still in the Navy. I did a photo shoot with this guy in prison who's really awesome. And I, you know, dealing with dysmorphia, like when you get to see yourself look good in a photo enough times, eventually you're like, maybe I just look good, you know. And I started to feel more positively about myself. And like I've done some like just kind of like regular plain old like glamour news. They wrapped me in a white sheet like a cherub, and it was pretty, but like, you know, like I'm like, if you guys ever wrap me in a white sheet again and it's not covered in blood, I'll be mad. But yeah, so I got to do like kind of standard stuff like that, you know. I always joke, like, oh my God, I'm like the most boring model, because like that was one of the things the homies used to say, like, she's dog ugly and she's like a boring model. I'm like, yeah. So yeah, like, you know, the more like basic stuff, but yeah, being able to just like be more creative, you know, it's just, for me, it's just like another creative outlet, you know. And I recently did some stuff where we did like some kind of like Viking like makeup, and, you know, I'm trying to plan some other stuff, but yeah, for me, it's just another outlet that's like similar to acting, because I get to create a character of some sort, and I get to decorate, and I get to like try on the cool outfits and stuff. And so yeah, for me, modeling is just like acting. It's another way to play a character, which I think is fun.
That's awesome. What we were talking about last night actually was you with the art that you make. You do like tit prints, which you said were inspired by like prison art and things like that. And I've seen your shop and some of the other stuff that you do. And what can you tell us about the art that you make and the different things that you're working on?
So like, I never really considered myself a visual artist, but then I realized like the kind of like modeling and photography like go hand in hand. And like, I'm really good at learning like special effects makeup, like on the fly. It's like some just, I guess I do have an autistic superpower. I thought it was just, I'm terrified of wind, like sensory issues, you know what I mean? So like, you know, I'm like, how come every other person with diet autism has a fucking superpower and I'm just like scared of wind? But yeah, I hate wind. But yeah, you know, I really, you know, for me, it was just like another creative outlet to do, you know, modeling and acting. And so I didn't really consider myself a visual artist. And then, you know, I do like to like doodle and paint sometimes, even if I don't think I'm very good at it. That's, you know, perspective. But I was on like a Instagram page for someone that was like, you know, buying and selling and collecting Murderabilia. And they were like, oh, these tip prints from, I can't fucking remember who it was, but it was like a lady in prison. And I was like, oh my God, I should make some of those. Like, that'd be so fun. And I realized there's like there's a lot more to it than I thought there was. And I was like, thank God they're like small enough to fit on an 8x10 canvas. Or this would be really difficult, you know? So like, yeah, it was cool because I was like, you know, it was just like a creative outlet. And it was making these paintings of like my tits was, it was cool because it was, you know, it was inspired by true crime memorabilia, but I also got to kind of make it my own and do almost kind of bougie because I wasn't just doing it on like, you know, paper and like I have it on canvases. And I sold one of them to another true crime collector. And so now I have 5 of them left. I'm going to list them in my Etsy shop, I think, because I brought them to the punk rock flea market last Saturday. And I'm grateful for all the conversations I had with breast cancer and mastectomy survivors, but none of them sold. So now I've got like 5 paintings of my tits sitting in my apartment looking at me. And I'm like, I kind of want to get rid of at least 4 of them. So yeah, I'm gonna post those on Etsy. And like on Etsy also, you know, my solo music project is called Alien Love Bite. Alien Love Bite is a conspiracy theory that, you know, people are genetically engineered to love who they love. And that's why if you love someone and you fall out of love with them, it's because you were like programmed by the aliens. And so I mean, on top of the homies and stuff, I had people that said I was a reptilian and from the Illuminati. And I was like, I work at fucking Macy's. So like a reptilian. So I've just been going with it. So I made some stickers for my music project, and then I took a screen cap, kind of like a picture that my friend Ron took, amazing special effects artist Ron George. He took a picture from the impersonator, and I was like, you know, Roe v. Wade had just gotten overturned, and I was like, fuck. And so I was like, just inspired to make a sticker that says "Eat the Patriarchy," and people seem to love that one. So yeah, I've got like photo prints and odds and ends and stuff in the Etsy shop. I'm really happy I'm finally like being proactive about it because I don't know, it gives me a chance to make money off of doing something creative, and I feel like that's everyone's dream to make money doing something creative, right?
Yeah. Make money off of your passion. Also, when I was reading, I actually read that article that you were talking about, the 7-page article, and they talked about you being a musician and being in a band, and I was wondering what you could tell us about that as well.
So like when I was a kid, I did like, you know, city choirs and stuff. So I've had like, you know, vocal training and stuff, but I was too impatient to learn instruments very well. Like I was in like our, you know, shitty horror punk band in high school, which actually looking back, we were pretty good for a bunch of kids who like half of us couldn't play our instruments. We were pretty good. So, you know, I grew up and I don't know, I was living with my partner at the time, and I was like, why don't we just start a 2-piece band? And like, I'm obsessed with Lightning Bolt. Like Lightning Bolt is like one of my favorite bands in the whole wide world. I had the drummer sign my leg, and I like hand poked, like tattooed it onto myself the next day. And yeah, so like, and cause he plays drums and he like wears these cool masks where he like hooks up a mic and fucking sings. And I was like, I'm going to play drums and sing too. Also, cause it's really hard to find a drummer. So, we started like a 2-piece band. You know, my friend Nora, she's a documentary filmmaker from Berlin, Nora Mandray, and she got a hold of me because she heard about all the memorabilia stuff. And she was like, I want to make a portrait film about you called Murderabilia, but it's a portrait film. So it shows like people see this person as like a novelty. Like I've had someone literally call me the Batman chick before, you know, and so like, but she wants to show like, this is a person, a whole person with like all the different facets of a person, like hobbies and hopes and dreams. So she made us a music video for one of her songs. And then like not long after that, like my partner turned out to be like really abusive. It was crazy because like our whole like mutual, I don't want to say friend circle, but like acquaintance / like frenemy circle, completely fucking turned on me. And it was sad actually, because like less than a couple of years later, like I got a message from an old roommate of ours, and you know they were like, so you weren't the only person that dealt with abuse from Evelyn. Apparently the person that dated them after, you know, also dealt with that. And I was like, is it the one that I thought she was cheating on me with? And she told me I was being paranoid. It was. So yeah, it was like it was almost devastating because like I lost a partner and I, even though they were abusive, like I cared about them, and like I lost my only other bandmate. So I still had shows to play, and I was like, I'm not going to not play these fucking shows. I have an acoustic guitar. Like I can modify a few things a little and I can add some covers or whatever, something fucking cute. And I did that, and I, played a couple of shows, and when I came back to Ohio, actually, it was cool because this band Ludlow that we played with in Boulder, they were so awesome. They were like, hey, we're doing, like, a tour. Do you want to, like, do our Ohio dates with us, like a mini tour? And I was like, fuck yeah, I do. So, I got to, like, play these shows with all these people and have this really cool experience, and I don't know. I feel like, God, if I had to play music for money, like, it would just feel obligatory. Like, every single time I play a show, I, like, hype it up in my head like it's going to be terrible. Like, I'm so unprepared. Like, I just don't feel like practicing because it feels like work. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It feels like work. And so then when I actually play the show, it goes really well and people are really nice and they're like, oh, you were really great. And it's awesome. So the last show I played was at No Class in Cleveland. I'm trying to get together with a friend of mine to like jam a little, but it's just been hard to like make time because like anytime that I'm not with my dogs or like working on a creative project or like, in the fall it's haunted house stuff, like running a full-time dog nanny business and stuff is rough. And then at the end of the day, I want to doom scroll on Instagram and watch Bob's Burgers and go the fuck to sleep. Like I'm tired. My brain can't do it. So yeah, I don't play music as often as I should, but I do dabble in different instruments, and I guess by default I'm a folk punk act because I guess that's acoustic punk music, right? Let's folk punk. Yeah, we'll just call it that.
Well, that's awesome. You're really multifaceted, and I'm excited to like dive deeper into all the art that you make for sure. Yeah. I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else that you want us to cover or talk about that we haven't talked about already?
I'm trying to think. I just things I want to plug. I'm very like excited that I'm like expanding my Etsy shop and like expanding like my Patreon following. I'll send you a link to all that stuff. But Patreon, it'll say Rebel Ghoul. I think the URL is Apocalypse Daldo. But yeah, so I'm just really excited like to be getting my hands into more like creative projects. Like haunt season's coming up, and I'm really trying to plug the Etsy and the Patreon because I want to put all of my creative stuff up there for like people to see, and hopefully get the rest gets picked up by somebody. But I'm just really excited for people to see Thrust. But other than that, I can't think of anything else that I had to add. Times are crazy, so I just tell people like maybe not stay positive, but just take care of yourself. It's been rough,
Well, Rowan, I really appreciate you taking the time, and send me all those links for everybody listening. Down in the description will be all of the links where you can check out all the stuff that Rowan's doing, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thanks so much, dude. You too.
I hope that you found this interview with Rowan interesting, and special thanks to her for sitting down and chatting with me. Stay tuned to next week, where we cover the second entry in this two-part installment, in which I share with you more relics that I have related to this case, and where I go into a deep dive explaining some of the circumstances that resulted in this tragedy, as well as correcting many of the misconceptions that have been shared over the past decade. I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, this is Murderabilia Show and Tell.